The title of this video suggests that there is a method or a framework that can solve any problem regardless of its nature, which already sounds fake, because obviously, if such method existed, then everyone would just use it and no one would have any problems, right? That's actually wrong, because this is based on the conclusion that if a framework exists, then everyone automatically knows about it and everyone is using it. So let's go back to solving any problem. In 2015, I encountered one book on creativity thinking. I'll link it in the description, but it's in Russian language. And basically, before reading that book, I thought that creativity is something that some people have and some people don't. Some people just are genius enough so that ideas visit their head. And some people are just, they have to struggle in order to come up with solution to some problems. So after reading that book, this mindset completely shifted because I found out that the process of ideation or finding solutions, creative solutions to any problem regardless of its nature is a strict formalized process that has specific methods, specific steps. So by now I have a list of these techniques sorted by how reliable and powerful they are in the real world from my experience, and I want to share some of them with you guys today. To make this less abstract, I'll focus on one specific example, one specific problem that I had back in the day when I only graduated from the university and I got my first job as a programmer. So I was going to work by metro underground for 1 hour a day. So my commute was over 1 hour in the morning and then over 1 hour in the evening. So that was really annoying. And I treated it as a problem that I would just run through the framework to hopefully find some solutions. The first technique that's at the top of my list because how powerful it is decomposition using mind map. And I actually told about this approach when I was creating a recent video about how to eliminate nerves and delete novelty at the competition. So basically, you've got a list of paper or a special program, like for mind mapping, there are thousands of them now. You write your program in the middle of this list and you decompose by writing every aspect of it. And then from there, you branch out and write any aspect of the aspect. So you will find solution by just listing what's related to the problem and tweaking that a little bit. So with this commute to work example, there are such aspects as work, transport, time, boredom, because it's quite boring. So you start listing those and you're thinking about one aspect of the problem. So I focused on time back then because I was also reading a book on time management. And I figured that, actually the time doesn't go anywhere. I still have time and I can use it for something special. Like I was striving for a 5x5 world record back then in 2015. So I thought, how can I turn my commute, the time that I have, to actually utilize it for practicing 5x5 blindfolded? And so I came up with a set of drills that are metro friendly, such as execution drills, which require a little context and you can dive into it, do a couple of drills, and then, maybe if you are pushed by someone in the metro, then it's not as destructive as, doing a 5-blind solve completely. And I came up with an application that will simulate my 5-blind memorization process, but without actually the cube. So you don't even have to twist the cube, you just have, your phone and your practice memo. So from here, there were so many ideas and I incorporated them into my commute. So every commute of mine became just another 5x5 blindfolded practicing session. The second powerful technique in the list is asking what if the reality had no limits. So if there were no limitations from the reality, ... right? So applying to the commute example, if reality didn't have any limits, I would, teleport to work, right? Or I would just, put myself into anabiosis and then wake myself up somehow at the end of the commute. So from here, you can extrapolate and think about polyphase sleeping or techniques that would allow you to still get rest, like to still have more sleep while you are doing your commute. Or with the teleportation, you think what can be, so you think of this problem on a second level, right? So if the commute was instant, what is the closest analogy from the reality that does have limitations? Well, the solutions that came to mind from here is to move your job or your work close to your home. So the commute to work is almost like a teleportation, or you move close to work, which eventually is something that I did. Another cool example of using this technique, I was designing a 15 puzzle simulator where you move pieces of a slidey seam. There was a slidey seam simulator back then, and I tried to come up with my own. So I thought, how can you make the controls so seamless that it's even easier than pressing the keys on a keyboard? And so without reality limits, what would the controls for this puzzle be? Well, obviously you just look at the puzzle and you move the pieces with a power of thought. So what's the next logical step from here? It's obviously looking at the pieces and moving the pieces with your sight, right? Your eyes. So I discovered some devices that are eye tracking devices. And even though I didn't eventually release the game where you control the pieces movement with your eyes, it was quite a fun experience. And you can see how this can lead into some innovative solutions that you didn't even think about in the first place. Okay, technique number 3, just real quick. You have to admit that the solutions that you get depend strictly on the way that you formulate the question. So how you phrase the question defines what solutions will you end up with. For example, with the commute, you can ask, how can I shorten the time of my commute? But you can also ask questions such as, how can I eliminate the commute altogether? Which probably will, nudge you into thinking how I can get a remote job, or maybe how I can switch jobs completely or eliminate the job and like switch my life to doing something else. Or you can say, how can I monetize my commute? This, as you see, spreads completely different ideas into what you do during the commute. So the way you ask the question defines what solutions will you end up looking for. What I shared with you is just a tiny fraction of my framework, and I put the link in the description with an overview, more comprehensive one, of the list of the techniques that I ended up with. So this video is just a part of my 5 tiny teasers videos where I explore ideas and just share briefly something that I can go deep in. So if this is something that resonates with you, I can go deep and comprehensive about all of the techniques, a lot of examples of how this can be used to apply to any problem regardless of its nature.